In this episode, I wanted to share an interaction in my clinic with a new client that was currently seeing 6 different providers for a neck injury, all of which were all over the place and clearly doing nothing to help the problem. I share my own lessons and insights from this interaction, but most importantly, go through my process to help a client stop seeing a provider, or many providers in this case, that have no clue as to what is going on and are only making the problem significantly worse. I hope you learned something new and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Soft Tissue Treatment Revolution podcast, where we teach overworked massage therapists a better treatment system that will allow you to cut your treatment times by at least 50% so you can stay healthy, avoid that dreaded burnout, and help a hell of a lot more people get out of pain. If you're new to the show, you don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Matt Maggio. I am a soft tissue injury treatment expert, specifically for neck, shoulder, elbow, and wrist pain. My focus is on finding and fixing scar tissue and then reducing inflammation from chronic injuries without the use of drugs, injections, or surgeries, which does lead to a significant increase in overall functioning, flexibility, and long-lasting pain relief. Thanks so much for stopping by and checking out the show. Let's get right into it. How I get my clients to stop seeing other horrible providers that are only messing them up. So a quick story on all this. Had a new client come in the other day. I had some doubts about it anyway during the consultation process. They were kind of all over the place and thought they knew all their problems, had seen a million different providers, haven't really got any answers, was kind of bitter and mean about everything, complained about the prices, all sorts of stuff. A lot of red flags there. But I know sometimes when people just get totally just fucked over by the medical system, they're super skeptical and they think everyone's trying to screw them over. So I'll always give someone a chance to come in. And this client came in and they walked in with a notebook. It must have been like 1,000 pages just of all sorts of shit. And I was just like, oh, okay. And they were like, do you want to read over all this? And I was like, well, I don't have 27 hours to do it. But, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, why would I want to know what all the other providers were doing? Because clearly that shit wasn't working, because you wouldn't be here if it was. So why would I want to look at notes from other providers that obviously didn't have a fucking clue as what they're doing? But I didn't say that out loud. I was just thinking, I was like, if I need to look at it, I'll go back. I'm always being nice. In my older years, I'm less abrasive. I try to be a little bit nicer. So went through the exam, did everything, and started thinking, afterwards, I wanted to share this interaction to help you learn as well so you can avoid it. But there's a big problem with too many providers treating one problem. I think this person was currently seeing, 6 providers for a neck problem. They had an orthopedic doctor, they had a neurologist, massage therapist, 2 chiropractors, and a physical therapist. One of the ones that made me laugh was I'm just laughing thinking about it now. The physical therapist, first they were saying that the problem, one of them was saying that it was a pelvic floor dysfunction, which in turn was causing all the neck pain. The other one said it was because of the ankle not functioning correctly. So if they just fixed the ankle, then the neck would go. But this person had like multiple surgeries, a lot of things. Hey, I'm sure maybe that contributed to it, but you still got to address the problem at hand, which is the neck. They were all over the fucking place, but usually that's what happens. A bunch of providers just throw a bunch of random shit at it and they don't really know what works, and they act like they're smart and they throw all their studies at you and they're like, blah, 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 blah. And lo and behold, the client isn't any better. They're still in pain. They're pissed off. Their problem's worse, and they're not getting any real answers. So they're pretty pissed off by the time they come in, and I don't blame them for being pissed off. I just hate when they're mad at me. But when you have too many providers working on a problem, usually they're overstepping each other. You don't really know what's working, and a lot of times it's fucking up the situation. I always say, pretend like you're in a kitchen making a cake, and it only needs one person to do it, but you got 10 different people throwing ingredients from all over the place. The cake's going to be fucked up, and that's what's happening in this situation. The injury is fucked up because no one has a clue, and they're all stepping on top of each other. So I don't like to treat when there's a million different providers, and I won't treat either. So I get accused of this a lot. Here's the thing. I'm not an anti-conservative care treatment person. So like PT, chiropractic, exercise, I don't know, acupuncture, all sorts of that shit. Massage, general massage, all good. I'm totally fine with that. I'm fine with people trying it out and seeing how it goes. I'm just anti a shit ton of visits. And when I talk like a shit ton of visits, I'm like the people that are doing 20, 30, 40, 50, 80, 100 visits, and they have no real results or improvements in function. I made a video a couple weeks ago on my YouTube channel. If you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, we put a lot of good information out there to help you educate your clients and educate yourself. But I talked about this idea called the 5-visit rule. And in the 5-visit rule, I have this rule with any of my treatments. Basically, I should see a significant improvement in function in the first 5 visits. That's because we take measurements, we do objective tests. And if it isn't improving in function in the first 5 visits, then the treatment I'm doing is not going to be able to help them. I wish other providers would follow that rule as well, but they don't. And they keep going, even though that shit isn't working. So what did I used to do back in the day when I was a young, brash, arrogant, kind of an asshole? I mean, I'm still an asshole, but I'm like a refined asshole, like a nice, fine wine that's aged over time. I would just say out loud what I was really thinking. I'd say that those people are morons and they had no clue. I would state the obvious. And it didn't go too well at first. A lot of people, they would take it personal and they would get upset because they would think I was telling them that they were dumb for doing all that. And they're not dumb. They just got fucked over by those people. But my delivery really sucks. So what do I do now in my wiser age is I gently, very gentle, I get them to realize their own conclusions that it isn't working and it's making things worse. So how do I do this? It's like a Jedi mind trick, but no, it's basically through my process called the consultation. So a thing I teach in my method, the PEAK method, is doing a thorough and detailed injury history and consultation. And different things are built in there as well to kind of get this person on a different path and thinking differently about what's going on and understanding that, no, we can't have a shit ton of providers in there. So I ask a couple questions towards the end. I say, who else have you seen for this problem? Then I get an idea. And with this one, they're like, I've seen like 27 different providers. I'm like, okay, they're all over the place. This gives me an idea. The next question I ask, I say, what did any of those providers tell you was wrong? And I just listen and I wait and see. And you know what? A lot of times, I'd say 95% of the time, it's usually some nonsense or some bullshit. But a lot of times they go, you know what? They never really told me what was wrong. And then I just kind of pause and I go, yeah, it is pretty hard to fix a problem if you don't know what it is in the first place. And the client will kind of nod their head and be like, yeah, you know what? You're right. They didn't tell me what was wrong. I just kept going because I didn't know any better. It was covered by my insurance, or I just thought it was me and I just need to keep going to see results. It's not their fault. It's the provider's fault. And then the last question that I always ask is, did any of those treatments help? And I listen. Just listen. Very curious. I like to listen and see what they say. And a lot of times they won't say that. They'll say something like, they were really nice, or they had a really cool office, or their front desk was so nice, or they gave me cookies when I came in, or like did something. It's like they never talk about the treatment actually helping. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so you basically just paid this person to hang out and they're really nice. Like at the end of the day, results rule, period. That's all that really matters. And if like these clients are going to these people just because they're nice or they don't know what else to do, they're getting fucked over and they're getting screwed. And they should be pissed off because they're getting screwed. And nothing pisses me off more than when a provider takes advantage of people. So there's specifics for 2 common providers, I guess we would say, in the soft tissue world that are our competition. I wouldn't call them our direct competition because I don't think they do anything worthwhile that's treatments, but one is the chiropractor. So people always say, I need to go, my bone's out of place. I give a lot of explanations on this podcast. I share it all over my channels, everything like that, about the idea of like, hey, so your bone goes out of place, they put it back in place. What holds the tissue, what holds the bone in place is the soft tissue. So if we address the soft tissue, the bone's going to hold in place and you don't even need to see the chiropractor. And when I explain it like that, they're like, yeah, that does make sense. And this is coming from someone, myself, that spent well over $150,000 on a chiropractic degree that I don't even use. So if that treatment would work, I would actually do it in my own clinics, but it does not work. And I explain this to them. Next thing is physical therapists. They tell the client, your muscles are tight and they're weak, so we need to stretch them and strengthen them. But what I explain to them is like, hey, your tissue is actually bad. It's all that scar tissue and that adhesion that built up, and it's not a healthy tissue. Physical therapy is kind of like trying to brush and floss your teeth when you have a bad cavity. It's actually going to make it worse. So that's why I always break things down into analogies and really just explain to them what's going on and why those treatments aren't helping without really being a jerk and being like, that guy's an asshole and fuck them, or they're a waste of time. I used to do that and it didn't get me anywhere. They always say you attract more flies with honey than vinegar, or whatever the hell that saying is. So how did this whole interaction go in my office? Well, they got pretty mad at me, but it was really their own projecting for feeling lied to and ripped off by other people. A lot of people suffer from these biases as humans. One of them is called conviction bias, where they're like, well, whatever I did just worked, and I'm going to convince myself that it worked, and I don't want to hear anything else besides that because it makes me feel like I'm not smart. That's pretty much everyone in the regular world and society nowadays. I also told them that I would only work with them if they saw me and only me and stopped care with all those other providers. They declined that option, and they actually wrote back a few days later asking me more questions about what was going on. And then the kicker was they were dictating to me how they needed to be treated, exactly where I needed to work, and that they would continue to work with the other providers as well because they need a whole team of people to figure out their complex problem. What did I do? I kindly answered their questions. I didn't ignore it. I wasn't mean about it. And I told them that I was actually going to decline treating them at this time. So what did I learn? Most importantly is you got to stick to your guns. You got to be careful taking on pain in the ass clients that have been, almost just beaten, battered by the system, and realize yourself that you can't help someone if they aren't ready to help themselves. So big take home from all this is, being awesome at treatment and delivering results is really only one part of the treatment success equation. A lot comes from client communication and education, which is really boring to do, but it's vitally important. In our training modules, not only do we teach you how to be a badass treatment provider who does it faster and better than anyone else, we also help you communicate effectively and educate the client to get full and optimal results. So feel free to reach out and learn more and see how our systems can help take your practice to a whole new level. I appreciate you guys listening to this. And as I end every podcast, go out there and be great this week. The world needs access to your awesome soft tissue-based treatments so they can stay the hell away from pain pills, injections, and surgeries, which only make things worse. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye. Thanks so much for listening. If you want help on the path to being able to double your income, all while working 50% less and being taken seriously as a healthcare provider, I have some great resources for you. Number one, get access to our free training modules and introduction to my system, the Peak Method. Number two, subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Soft Tissue Revolution. Links to all of this can be found in the show notes. Lastly, if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star review and share it with others that you know it could help.